Have you ever wondered why some people can speak English fluently, even though they never studied complicated grammar? And at the same time, why do so many students know hundreds of grammar rules, but still freeze when it's time to speak? If that sounds familiar, this video might completely change the way you learn English. Because today, I'm going to share one powerful idea. Stop learning English like a school subject, and start learning it like a language. Here's something surprising. A baby doesn't learn grammar first. A baby doesn't memorize verb tenses. A baby doesn't open a grammar book. Instead, a baby listens. Thousands of hours of listening. Every single day. Slowly, naturally, the brain begins to recognize sounds, words, patterns, and meanings. Then one day, the baby speaks. Not perfectly, but naturally. Now think about yourself. When you learned your first language, did anyone teach you grammar before you spoke? Of course not. You learned by listening. So why should English be different? This idea is supported by famous linguist Stephen Krashen, who introduced the input hypothesis. According to Krashen, we acquire language best when we understand messages that are just a little above our current level. Not through endless grammar drills. Not through memorizing rules. But through meaningful listening. That doesn't mean grammar is useless. Grammar can improve your accuracy later. But grammar is not what creates fluency. Listening creates fluency. Let's imagine two students. Student A studies grammar every day. Present perfect. Past perfect. Conditional sentences. Passive voice. He knows every rule. But he rarely listens to real English. He rarely speaks. Now meet student B. She listens to English podcasts, short stories, conversations, YouTube videos, audiobooks, every day. She doesn't understand everything, but she keeps listening. After a few months, student B begins speaking naturally. She doesn't think about grammar. She simply knows what sounds right. Who do you think becomes fluent faster? Research suggests it's usually student B, because the brain learns language through repeated exposure. The more you hear correct English, the more your brain builds natural patterns. Think about music. Could you sing your favorite song if you only studied the lyrics? Probably not. You learned it because you heard it. Again, and again, and again. Language works the same way. The more you hear natural English, the easier it becomes to speak naturally. Here's another mistake many learners make. They translate every sentence from their native language into English. Imagine trying to have a conversation while translating every word. It's exhausting. It's slow, and it destroys confidence. Instead, train your brain to connect English words directly with ideas. For example, when you hear the word apple, don't translate it. Simply imagine an apple. Red, sweet, juicy. That's exactly how native speakers think. Not with translations, but with images and meaning. Your goal is not to translate English. Your goal is to understand English. Here's a question. How many hours have you spent studying grammar? Maybe hundreds. Now ask yourself another question. How many hours have you spent listening to real English? For many learners, the answer is surprisingly low. And that's the real problem. Fluency doesn't come from what you know. It comes from what you've heard. Thousands of times. Let's do a simple experiment. Listen to these sentences. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'll call you later. I don't know. I can't believe it. Did you notice something? You didn't think about grammar. You simply understood them. Why? Because you've heard these patterns many times before. Your brain recognized them instantly. That's exactly how fluency develops. Pattern by pattern. Sentence by sentence. Story by story. One of the biggest secrets used by successful language learners is something called comprehensible input. That simply means listening to English that is challenging, but still understandable. Not too easy. Not too difficult. If you understand about 80 to 90% of what you hear, you're learning at the perfect level. Don't worry about every unknown word. Native speakers don't understand every word they hear either. They focus on the overall meaning. And so should you. Remember this. You don't become fluent because you know 10,000 words. You become fluent because you've heard common words used in thousands of real situations. That's why listening is so powerful. It teaches pronunciation. It teaches rhythm. It teaches natural expressions. It teaches confidence, without you even realizing it. So from today, make one small promise to yourself. Instead of spending another hour memorizing grammar rules, spend that hour listening. Listen while walking. Listen while cooking. Listen while traveling. Listen before sleeping. Little by little, your brain will begin changing. And one day, you'll surprise yourself. You'll answer a question in English, without translating, without fear, without hesitation, because the sentence will simply come to your mind, naturally, and that's the beginning of real fluency. In the next part, we'll discover why your brain learns English faster when you stop trying to memorize everything and start enjoying the language like a story. Have you ever finished watching an English movie and realized you understood much more than you expected? You didn't stop every 5 seconds to check grammar. You didn't memorize vocabulary lists. You simply followed the story. And somehow, your brain learned. That's because the human brain is naturally designed to learn through context. When words are connected to emotions, pictures, situations, and stories, they become unforgettable. But when words are isolated on a vocabulary list, the brain quickly forgets them. This idea is supported by cognitive psychology. Our brains remember meaning far better than they remember isolated facts. That's why stories are one of the most powerful language learning tools ever discovered. Think about your favorite movie. You probably remember famous dialogues. Not because you studied them, but because you experienced them. The emotions helped your memory. Now imagine using that same method to learn English. Instead of forcing yourself to memorize 50 new words today, listen to one interesting story. Tomorrow, listen again. You'll notice something amazing. Words that felt completely new yesterday will suddenly feel familiar. That's exactly how language grows. Not through pressure, but through repetition. Here's another truth that many English learners never hear. Your brain hates stress. When you're afraid of making mistakes, your brain becomes slower. You forget words. You panic. You stop speaking. This happens because stress affects memory and learning. Psychologists have studied this for years. When we're relaxed, our brains process information much more effectively. That's why children often learn languages faster than adults. It's not because they're smarter. It's because they're not afraid of sounding silly. Children make mistakes every single day. They pronounce words incorrectly. They create funny sentences. But they keep talking. And every mistake teaches them something new. Adults often do the opposite. They wait until everything is perfect. They wait until their grammar is perfect. Their pronunciation is perfect. Their vocabulary is perfect. The problem is that perfect day never comes. So promise yourself something today. Don't wait to speak perfect English. Speak improving English. Every conversation makes you stronger. Every listening session trains your ears. Every sentence builds confidence. Now let's talk about something called language patterns. Native speakers don't build every sentence from grammar rules. Instead, their brains remember patterns. For example, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. I'll be right back. That sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. These aren't just random words. They're complete language patterns. When you hear them hundreds of times, your brain stores them as one unit. Later, when you need them, they come out automatically. No translation. No grammar analysis. Just natural communication. That's why listening is so much more powerful than memorizing rules. It teaches complete expressions. Exactly the way real people speak. Here's a challenge. Tomorrow morning, instead of opening a grammar book, listen to 15 minutes of easy English. Choose something interesting. A podcast, a story, a YouTube video, a conversation. Don't pause every few seconds. Don't panic if you miss a word. Keep listening. Your goal isn't to understand every word. Your goal is to understand the message. Imagine watching a football match. You don't need to see every blade of grass to enjoy the game. You follow the action. Language works the same way. Focus on the big picture. The details will come later. One habit can completely transform your English. Listen to the same audio several times. The first time, you'll understand the general idea. The second time, you'll notice new words. The third time, you'll recognize sentence patterns. The fourth time, you'll begin predicting what comes next. That's when real learning happens. Repetition doesn't make learning boring. It makes learning permanent. Professional musicians practice the same song hundreds of times. Athletes repeat the same movements every day. Why? Because repetition creates mastery. Language is no different. Every time you hear natural English, your brain becomes a little faster, a little stronger, a little more confident. And after enough repetition, something incredible happens. You stop hearing English as a foreign language. You simply hear meaning. That's the moment fluency begins. Remember, listening isn't wasting time. Listening is training your brain. Every minute you spend with real English, you're building the foundation for effortless speaking. So don't underestimate those small daily sessions. 15 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow, 30 minutes next week. Months later, you'll look back and realize you became fluent without feeling like you were studying. Because you weren't just learning English. You were living with English. In part 3, we'll explore why speaking becomes effortless when you train your ears first, discover the daily listening routine used by successful language learners, and learn how to think directly in English without translating every sentence. Now let me ask you one important question. Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to say, but the words just wouldn't come out? You knew the grammar. You had learned the vocabulary. But when someone asked you a simple question, your mind suddenly went blank. Don't worry. This happens to millions of English learners around the world. And the reason is surprisingly simple. Your brain has been trained to recognize English, but not to react in English. There's a huge difference. Imagine learning to drive a car. You could spend months reading the driver's manual. You could memorize every traffic sign. You could even pass a written test. But until you actually sit behind the wheel, you won't become a confident driver. English works exactly the same way. Reading teaches you knowledge. Grammar teaches you structure. But listening teaches your brain speed. And speed is what creates fluent conversations. Think about your favorite singer. When they perform on stage, they don't stop to think. Should I use the present perfect here? Of course not. Years of practice have made everything automatic. That's exactly what listening does for your English. It turns knowledge into instinct. Scientists who study the brain often describe this as building automaticity. When you repeat an activity often enough, your brain performs it with less conscious effort. That's why experienced drivers don't think about changing gears. That's why skilled musicians don't think about every finger movement. And that's why fluent English speakers don't think about grammar before every sentence. Their brains have already built the patterns. You can build those same patterns, not by memorizing hundreds of rules, but by hearing correct English again and again. Now here's a habit that can completely transform your speaking. It's called active listening. Most people simply play English in the background. That's passive listening. It's helpful, but active listening is much more powerful. Here's how to do it. Choose a short audio, maybe 1 or 2 minutes long. Listen once. Just enjoy it. Listen again. This time, notice the pronunciation. Listen a third time. Pay attention to common expressions. Then try repeating 1 or 2 sentences exactly as you hear them. Don't change the words. Don't translate them. Just imitate the speaker. This technique is often called shadowing. You listen and speak almost at the same time. At first, it feels difficult, but after a few weeks, you'll notice your pronunciation becoming smoother, your rhythm becoming more natural, and your confidence growing every single day. Remember, children learn by copying. Actors learn by copying. Musicians learn by copying. Copying isn't cheating. It's one of the fastest ways to learn. Now let's talk about thinking in English. Many learners ask, how do I stop translating? The answer is, don't try to stop translating. Replace translating. Start with simple thoughts. When you wake up in the morning, think, I'm awake. It's a beautiful morning. I need some water. I'm making breakfast. These tiny thoughts train your brain to use English naturally. No dictionary. No grammar book. Just simple, real-life English. As your confidence grows, your thoughts will become longer. Today I'm going to work. I hope everything goes well. I'm excited to learn something new. Little by little, English becomes your second way of thinking. And when that happens, speaking becomes much easier. Here's another powerful tip. Listen to English every single day. Not once a week. Not only when you feel motivated. Every day. Even 10 or 15 minutes matters. Consistency always beats intensity. 1 hour every day for a month is far more effective than 7 hours on a Sunday. Language learning is like watering a plant. A little water every day helps it grow. Too much water once a week doesn't. So be patient. Some days you'll feel like you're improving quickly. Other days you'll feel stuck. That's normal. Learning a language isn't a straight line. It's a journey. And every minute you spend listening is another step forward. One day you'll watch an English movie without subtitles. One day you'll understand a podcast with ease. One day you'll answer someone in English without even realizing it. That day won't happen because you memorized another grammar rule. It will happen because your brain has heard English so many times that speaking feels natural. That's real fluency. Not perfect English. Natural English. And that's the goal. In the final part, we'll put everything together into a simple daily routine you can follow, discover the biggest mistake that keeps learners stuck for years, and end with a powerful message that will completely change the way you learn English forever. Now we've reached the most important part of this video. Because knowing what to do is helpful, but knowing how to do it every day is what changes your life. So here's a simple daily routine that anyone can follow. You don't need expensive courses. You don't need to study for 6 hours a day. You just need consistency. Start with 10 to 15 minutes of listening. Choose something you genuinely enjoy. A short story, a podcast, a YouTube video, a simple conversation. The topic doesn't matter as much as your interest. When you're interested, your brain pays attention. And when your brain pays attention, learning becomes easier. Next, listen to the same audio again. This time, don't focus on every single word. Focus on understanding the message. Ask yourself, what is the speaker trying to say? If you can understand the main idea, you're making progress. Now listen one more time. Repeat a few sentences aloud. Copy the speaker's pronunciation. Copy the rhythm. Copy the emotion. Don't worry if your accent isn't perfect. Your goal isn't to sound American, or British, or Australian. Your goal is to be clear, confident, and natural. Communication is always more important than perfection. Then, throughout your day, think in simple English. I'm drinking water. I'm walking to work. I need to buy some vegetables. This weather is really nice. These small thoughts may seem simple, but they train your brain to live in English. And that's exactly what fluent speakers do. Now let me tell you about the biggest mistake that keeps people stuck for years. They keep preparing, but they never start. They buy another grammar book, another vocabulary course, another notebook, another app. They believe the next resource will finally make them fluent. But fluency doesn't come from collecting information. Fluency comes from using the language. Imagine someone who buys 10 fitness books, but never exercises. Will those books make them stronger? Of course not. Knowledge without action changes nothing. The same is true for English. You don't become fluent by knowing more. You become fluent by listening more, understanding more, and speaking more. Every minute you spend with real English is an investment in your future. Some days you'll make mistakes. Good. Mistakes mean you're trying. Some days you'll forget words. That's normal. Even native speakers forget words sometimes. Don't measure your progress by today's mistakes. Measure it by your confidence compared to 6 months ago. Because fluency isn't built in a day. It's built one conversation, one podcast, one story, and one listening session at a time. Remember what the famous author James Clear says. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's why your daily routine matters more than your motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but habits stay. If you listen to English every day, even when you don't feel like it, Your brain will continue learning. Quietly, naturally, powerfully. One day, someone will ask you a question in English. And instead of translating, instead of searching for grammar rules, instead of feeling nervous, you'll simply answer. The words will come naturally. Not because you're smarter, but because your brain has heard those patterns hundreds of times. That's the power of listening. So from today, stop asking, which grammar book should I buy? Start asking, what can I listen to today? Replace fear with curiosity. Replace perfection with progress. Replace memorizing with understanding. And most importantly, trust the process. Every great English speaker was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once struggled to form simple sentences. The only difference is, they didn't quit. Neither should you. Remember this simple sentence whenever you feel discouraged. Listen more. Understand more. Speak naturally. Because fluency is not a gift. It's a habit. And that habit begins today. If this video changed the way you think about learning English, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next lesson. We'll continue helping you improve your English with simple, practical, and motivating videos every week. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, keep believing in yourself. And remember, your journey to fluent English starts with one simple decision. Just press play, listen, and let your brain do what it was designed to do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.